And welcome to our season wrap-up edition of Coach's Corner here on ColumbusNewsTeam.com, a news channel in Nebraska, as we take a look back at Lakeview, Columbus High, and SCOTUS and how they did over the football season. Starting things off for our Coach's Corner wrap-up is Coach Kurt Frenzen with the Lakeview Vikings. Coach, thank you for stopping in first and foremost. It's the last one of the year. It's a little bit sad.
Yeah, we appreciate all that you guys do during the course of the season, and this just gives us one more opportunity to kind of wrap things up and give us another opportunity to talk about our kids a little bit.
Well, let's do just that. Before we talk about the season as a whole, we still didn't recap your last game, a rival game against SCOTUS. They came out on top. You finished the season 4-5, but walk us through that SCOTUS game that was very intense at times, and especially in that third quarter was sort of a turning point.
Yeah, you know, in the first half, we just got off to a slow start offensively. I thought actually our defense played pretty well. You know, through the first two quarters, we really wanted to shut down their running game and try to get them to pass the ball a little bit. As you look back over the course of that first half, their big plays, most of the big plays came on chunk plays through the air. You know, Dalton Taylor pulled down a couple, and they had another couple deep routes that they hit. So were able to get some runs, but I felt like we were able to slow down the running game. You know, I don't think you completely shut down a explosive attack like that. But especially at their fullbacks, we felt like we really got a good, stop on them defensively in the first half. And then I thought going into halftime, I felt, we were in a decent position, and all things considered, it could have been worse, actually. We were down 21-0, but with that being said, we'd taken a safety. We had given them very good field position, and our offense did absolutely nothing to help our defense out. So we talked with our kids at halftime saying, we didn't need to win the game in the third quarter, we just need to get back in the game and focus on winning that third quarter. And boy, our kids responded and came out the second half and really put some things together, not only defensively, but then offensively. Finally, we were able to get things going. And then, it was very intense, very contested third quarter. Both teams definitely wanting that game. We were in playoff mode. We needed to win to get in or have a chance to get in playoffs. SCOTUS is playing, obviously, for a district championship in seeding. And then we got into the fourth quarter, about 10 minutes left. They were punting out of their own end zone, and it was a bang-bang play where call could have went either way. Unfortunately, went against us. And we didn't respond very well, as coaches, players at all. We should have regrouped a little bit better, and we did. In the meantime, SCOTUS went down, took the ball down, and scored, and their offense got going. But proud of the way our kids played, to play with a lot of heart and a lot of effort. And again, SCOTUS was the eventual state champion. And to be honest with you, we probably gave SCOTUS as good or better game through the playoffs up until they played Norfolk Catholic, which obviously Norfolk Catholic was a little bit above and beyond all the other opponents that SCOTUS had played. But as I watched them progress through the playoffs, I think that's something we can take away, that we really competed and did what we could with an outstanding SCOTUS football team.
Exactly what I was going to ask you. You finished 4-5, and that was your final loss of the season. But in hindsight, they won, and the fact that it was a lot closer game than the score indicates, just it hinged on that play. So positives to go into next year, I guess, with your group of guys.
Yeah, that's the best SCOTUS team, obviously, that has been on the field since I've been here, and they back that up not only with their wins and losses, but their stats and everything else. And they overcame a great deal of adversity through the playoffs and injuries and other things that occurred during the course of the year where they lost some players. So, and teams are going to need some luck, and they got that as well, and they created their own luck as well. So hats off to them. But the thing that we can take away is, I feel that, with the team that we had, we were close. We look at Wahoo, who did beat SCOTUS during the regular season. We were knocking on the door of that game and came away just short. Wahoo Newman was a 23-20 game in the fourth quarter, and we just let the wheels fall off the wagon there. And then, of course, the SCOTUS game. And let's go back even farther to week 1 when we played Wilbur, who SCOTUS beat in the semifinals. And they scored in the fourth quarter, put that game away against us 20-7, and we were non-existent on offense that night. If we would have had any offense, I felt like we had a chance to win that game as well. So we were right there with the best teams in the state to get over the hump. We just had to make more plays when it counts. And if you go to every one of those games, they had players step up and make big plays at very important times that really got them over the hump in those games, whether it's Wilbur, it's Wahoo, it's Newman, it's SCOTUS, any of those games, Boone Central as well. And Boone Central is really the only game where I felt like, they kind of pulled away at the end. But even in that game, you know, we scratched and clawed and got back to a 2-possession game in the fourth quarter as well. So that's just a tribute to our kids. I felt like that's the way they were every week. We had a brutal schedule, as a lot of teams do in our class. It's a tough class, top to bottom. But our kids didn't, shy away from anything. They attacked each week, attacked each rep in practice, attacked each opportunity to get better. And I felt like they did that. And, you know, they can always walk away from this season feeling like, you know what, we gave it our best and we're going to live with the results. Unfortunately, our best didn't get us to the playoffs, but we were darn close and we were right there. And with a win against Wilbur or a win against SCOTUS, we would have been in the top 16 in points this year.
Well, and just looking forward to the future, obviously you're saying goodbye to some seniors, Dylan Johnson, Trent Roth, Fultz, and some players, but also talking about the seniors you're going to lose and then looking forward to next year and the players that will be stepping up in 2016.
Well, first and foremost, up front, we're going to lose a couple linemen. Derek Smith and Trevor Schultz were two guys that played for us in the O-line this year. I thought they did an outstanding job. Both those young men really came to play each and every week, and I thought they did a great job executing. Derek Smith at center and Trevor at left tackle. Both those guys we'll miss. And then Austin Fultz at tight end is another guy that was a big force for us, not only in the blocking, but obviously the receiving. He had big plays throughout the course of the season and made big plays, and he was a guy that did that for us when we needed it most. We get the ball to him, and he'd always come up with a big catch. Then you go into the backfield, and we're going to take a big hit in our total offense as far as the production is concerned, starting with our quarterback, Dylan Johnson, the trigger man for our offense and our pistol offense. Just did a great job, very intelligent player and very athletic and did a lot of great things for us. And our fullback, Trey Shanks, behind him. Both those guys were a great 1-2 punch for us. And then talking about 1-2 punch, that leads into our H-back, which is Trent Roth and Chase Lindbergh. Both those young men I felt were tremendous people for us at that position this year. Trent, the guy that we could call any play and any package, and he'd get us there when we need to, get us some tough yards. And then Lindbergh was lightning in a bottle. You know, if we needed a big play, we'd get him in there. It always seemed like he'd shake loose and do something positive for us. So those guys are going to be missed as well. And like I said, we take a hit in production there. Then you move out to receiver Quinn Matson, who didn't play this year, but he was around our football team all year long and kind of helped out as a coaching assistant as you would have. And he did a great job helping us out this year. And then also out at the outside, Tate Jansen was another young man that I felt like did a great job for us and really did some nice things. So, just some of those guys there. And then defensively up front, Noah Duncan was a young man who played for us and did some great things up there, came back off an injury where he missed all of 2014 and had a huge impact for us in the middle on defense. Then also in defense in the middle at linebacker, Derek Zimba, just a very good player for us in the middle, solid, steady player that really got a lot of things done for us. So, as you look at our season, you look at things that those guys did, very a tribute to all those seniors because they put in a lot of hard work and effort for us.
All right, Coach. Well, it's been a pleasure covering you all throughout the season. Any sort of final thoughts as we're going to have to wait until next August, September before we get to cover you guys again and have you come in for Coach's Corner?
Well, we're just excited to start the sports season now for the winter, and we've got a good number of kids that are competing now in basketball and wrestling. So I'm excited to get out and watch those guys compete, and we'll only have about 10 kids of our returning players that aren't involved in winter sports, and that's a good number for us to have that number out, and then that few that are going to be doing our off-season conditioning. I'd rather have them competing and working year-round on fine-tuning that skill. The future's bright. We have a good young group of players coming up from our freshman class, our juniors and sophomores that are coming up and going to be upperclassmen now. We're going to be our seniors and juniors. I feel like there's some really good leadership in that class, and I feel like there's some guys that are blue-collar players that are going to bring their lunch pail. So we're excited about what they can do, and now it's just a matter of getting after it in this off-season, whether it's competing on the court, off the court, or on the wrestling mat, off the wrestling mat into track and soccer. Just getting better in those areas and doing what we can to get ready for next year and start that 2016 season off. It'll be here before we know it.
All right, Coach. Well, thank you for this whole season for coming in, providing all this insight for us. It's been a pleasure, and we will be covering those athletes on the wrestling mat as well as into the spring season as well. So looking forward to that, and I guess this is goodbye for at least Coach's Corner until August of next year, but thank you for coming in and making this possible.
Appreciate it, Brandon. Thank you.
Well, that wraps up this first segment of the Coach's Corner season wrap-up here on ColumbusNewsTeam.com News Channel Nebraska. I'm going to go get a haircut, and we'll be right back with head coach Craig Williams of the Columbus Discoverers. And welcome back to Coach's Corner football season wrap-up edition here on ColumbusNewsTeam.com and News Channel Nebraska 48. I told you I was going to get a haircut, and while I was at it, I decided to change my shirt and tie as well. But that's neither here nor there, because with us is Columbus head coach Craig Williams with the Columbus Discoverers as we get ready to recap the season that was for Columbus High. Coach, as always, how you doing? And appreciate you stopping in.
Doing well. It's nice to get out of the school a little bit and break up some of the monotony going on right now and get out and do something a little different.
Well, good. We're glad you're here. It's been a little while since we talked. We're going to just recap that last game of the season where you took on Millard South, a good team that it was a tough game. You ultimately lost it, and they were fighting for a playoff spot, so they had everything to play for.
Yeah, it seemed like if you look down our schedule, every team we played ended up in the playoffs. We had 5 of the teams on our schedule make the playoffs. 2 more were fighting the last week to get into the playoffs and ended up losing. So going into that last week, there was a chance that we had 7 teams on our schedule that were going to get in. But Millard South was a tough football team, very motivated after coming out last year, and we knocked them out of the playoffs and took their spot last year to get in. But it was a game that we came out. We didn't play well in the first quarter. They kind of jumped out on us early. We switched up our defense a little bit and threw a different look at them, and it took us a quarter or so to get used to playing it at game speed. After that, though, we settled in. We moved the ball a little bit, and not until the fourth quarter did we really start getting the thing rolling. But the defense really stepped up, forced a turnover, and made Millard South take more snaps, and which turned into punts. And to start the night, it was pouring down rain on us in pregame. So it was a wet night. It was a cool night, but you have to still go out and play a good football team.
And ultimately, the game, it turned out 31-7, I think you said it was. But what's that message, you tell your seniors who that was their last game, and what do you leave them with as a head coach?
Well, regardless of winning the game 31-7 or losing 31-7, we wrapped up our season also with our football banquet here a couple nights ago, and the message to this group of seniors was simply that we have such great kids in this program, and this group of young men are going to go out and do tremendous things. And we couldn't be prouder of this group for what they do in the classroom and off the field, and how they led us on the field. But this is a group of kids that had a 3.4 GPA as a class going out there, and they're all going to go on to college and do outstanding things and make the Discover Nation proud.
And obviously, I think you're one of the coaches I talked to last year where you preach the multi-sport athlete. You have a lot of football players that are going to be going on playing basketball, wrestling, as well as baseball. You want to have that athletic competitiveness year-round for your players.
Yeah, we want them to not only go out and hit the weight room, but find a competitive edge somewhere. Keep pushing yourself. Keep finding your limits. And I think right now we've got about 18 kids that aren't out for another sport. So we work with those kids in the weight room at this time, and and those other kids got to concentrate on their season, and they get their lifting done through their in-season lifting when their coach assigns it to them. But our kids are we want them to go out and try something different and expand their horizons, I think one of the biggest issues that we have with high school sports today and with kids today is they start to specialize too early, and it seems crazy to me that a high school kid wouldn't go out and do everything if they're capable. And so that's what we try to preach at Columbus High, and to be honest, we're not a big enough school to have kids playing one sport and that's it. So to be successful as a whole, as an athletic department, we need kids playing multiple sports.
Just looking back on the football season as a whole, it was obviously one that wasn't ideal where you weren't able to grab a win, but just what are your thoughts as you look at those 8-9 weeks and your journey you kind of went throughout and some of the lessons learned for those guys that will be coming back next year?
Yeah, it's a case that we didn't necessarily expect to come in and go 9-0. But by no means did any of us expect to go 0-9 either. We had kids with a lot of pride and a lot of goals that were set. Unfortunately, we didn't reach a lot of those goals. I thought these kids battled week in and week out. We were starting a lot of new kids, a lot of new faces after graduating a big senior class last year. And from day one, they came to practice every day wanting to learn. expecting to learn, expecting to get better, and they did that. To me, you've got to learn how to lose before you can learn how to win. And if you don't put yourself out there, you're never going to know, how far you can go. These kids, they put themselves out there every Friday night. We had a couple tough injuries throughout the year, and we're expecting some of those kids back. We didn't have a big senior class this year. Only about 13 of them are moving on, so we're expecting great things moving forward from the kids that are coming back.
And the silver lining of that situation, as we talked about, you have a lot of guys that are going to be returning that had that playing experience. So while it's not fully enjoyable for the growing process, it does pay dividends down the line like next year. And on top of that, you're going to be Class B. Is that something you're looking forward to, playing Class B as opposed to Class A? You kind of go back and forth throughout the years, but also the fact that you are returning a bunch of guys for next year with that experience from this season.
Yeah, it's we've had plenty of experience playing in Class B, and unfortunately, in the 5 cycles that I've been head coach, they've moved us every year. We've kind of gotten to the point that we just want them to leave us alone, and it's not anybody's fault. It's just the way that the enrollments shake out from year to year, and it just so happens that every 2 years we've been up and down, and it's just the way it's been. We're excited to find a niche and stay there. Find a group of schools that we can play and get used to playing year in and year out instead of throwing everything out the window every 2 years and starting over. We are really excited about the kids we have coming back. At the end of the year, if you look at the kids that are projected to be starters next year, we got 19 returning starters coming back, and we've got a bunch of other kids that got a ton of playing experience. So, we are extremely excited to get into this off season, get into the summer, and start working with these kids, and start building towards what we feel like is going to be a very successful few years here coming up.
All right, well, just sort of along those lines, wrapping this thing up, are you going to be seeing those kids working out with them? I know football season just got over, but when does the practicing or the drills start? I know you're going to want them in the weight room.
Yeah, and I'm in charge of the weight room too as the season goes, as we go through the off season, and we actually started 3 weeks ago up in the weight room, and we do a transition cycle where we do a 6-week program basically before Christmas. Not quite as intense, just to get them something to do here before Christmas. After Christmas, we'll get after them a little bit harder, and we get after them a little bit more as we get into the summer. But I also work with all the other sports, so that's where I get a chance to see them. Even though they're in another sport, I get a chance to see them in their in-season weightlifting programs. Just this morning, I was in there at 5:30 this morning working with the swim team, and then moved on to the wrestlers at 6:45. So it's great for me to get a chance to work with all the kids in the school, but I can also keep tabs on our football players and see what they're doing in their other sports.
All right, Coach. Well, it's been a very enjoyable football season for Coach's Corner having you come in. We appreciate you taking out the time these past 9-10 weeks, and looking forward to covering you next year. It's going to be 9-10 months from now, but it's going to be enjoyable when it comes back around. So thank you for coming in and making this show possible.
Absolutely. Looking forward to another year next year, too.
And so are we here on ColumbusNewsTeam.com and News Channel Nebraska. That is head coach Craig Williams of the Columbus Discoverers. They have a lot of people coming back next year and looking for some exciting things in Class B. Well, that wraps up this second segment here on Coach's Corner. Stay with us, though, because we're going to hear from head coach Tyler Linder and the Scotus Shamrocks as they grab the Class C1 state title. And welcome back to our third and final segment of the Coach's Corner wrap-up show here on ColumbusNewsTeam.com, where we have with us a state championship winning coach and head coach Tyler Linder for the Scotus Shamrocks. Now, Coach, I always ask you how you're doing as we start these things, but I think I know the answer.
Yeah, we're feeling really good over at Scotus, that's for sure.
Well, you should be. You won the school's third state championship just over a week ago in football. I know people always talk about when they win championships. I talk to players on the field, I talk to you, they always say, it hasn't set in yet. I'm not sure what we've done. It feels great, but I can't really process it all. A week away from that game, has it sunk in, and how are you feeling knowing that you are a state champion?
Again, the initial feeling is it's a great feeling. It's something that I haven't experienced before. typically, in my years of coaching, we've ended our season with a loss. And so it almost always feels like a funeral, and so this feeling is a little bit strange. Still, I don't think it's sunk in. It'll take a little bit more time for me to fully, grasp what we've accomplished. But, it's been an amazing ride so far. And we're a week removed from the state championship game, but the floods of support are still coming in. So it's always nice to hear.
Well, let's just rehash the game. I was on the sidelines with the video camera. One of the best games I've seen in a very long time between Norfolk Catholic and you guys. A game that most people, besides myself and other media, predicted, Norfolk Catholic, they're the perennial C1 power. They're going to win this one, and that wasn't the case. But starting things off, you had that punt that was sort of, the snap was kind of mishandled, and you guys had great field position. You scored right away with Bailey Pelster, and that sort of set the tone. But just walk us through the game and its progression throughout.
Yeah, I think our kids prepared extremely well for, like you said, a powerhouse in Norfolk Catholic. They had a great week of practice. Our coaching staff did a great job, lining our kids up for an opportunity to win the game. And so I think going in, we were very confident, despite the fact that lots of people were picking Norfolk Catholic to win. To me, it was almost a coin flip. I think that either team could have won, and it really could have swung, in a lot of different ways throughout the course of that game. But, I think, from a personal standpoint, I think that we had the edge going in because our kids are used to playing on big stages. That's kind of one of the things that we talked about as a staff and with our kids is, you guys have played at Morrison Stadium for a soccer title, right? You've wrestled in the CenturyLink Center, and you've played in Pinnacle Bank for basketball. So they know what it's like to play on a big stage, and so being in Memorial Stadium is an awesome experience, but it wasn't anything new to our kids. They had never played a game there, but they're used to being, the kind of the center of attention and on a big stage. So I think our kids prepared extremely well, and like you said, it showed right away. I think, our opening kickoff, we set the tone by kicking it deep, and then, Jake Boss pins it deep in the end zone so they get the ball on the 20, and our defense plays lights out with that first series, and we got very fortunate with kind of a bobbled snap, a little bit of mishandling on it, and we were able to tackle the punter on basically about the 5-yard line in the ensuing play where we scored a touchdown with Bailey. So, couldn't have painted a better picture of how to start a state championship game than that series right there.
And coming on to that point of how focused you guys were, I would agree, and I was not surprised, but maybe other people were, you being your first trip to state as a head coach. Beller, been there many times, but they had 2 or 3 fumbles. They had an interception, that muffed punt, or that punt snap that you had, and you only had the 1 fumble by Harrington on the kickoff, which you got back the very next play. So that really was a huge difference maker.
Yeah, anytime that you limit your turnovers and you force other ones, your odds of success go up, a ton. So, very happy with the way that our defense rallied to the football, was able to generate a few turnovers. A guy like John Lovell had an amazing, play on the ball at the 50-yard line. He had an interception, and that was one of my favorite moments of the game, is seeing John Lovell, who, if I told you when he was a freshman that he would be starting in a state championship game, you might have thought that I was crazy. And so, very proud of that young man and the rest of our senior group for taking us to Lincoln.
You go into the break, 19-14 at halftime, and one of the biggest parts of the game was that, it was all big, but the third quarter, where the only scoring was 6 points from Jake Boss, 43 yards or 42, and then he blasts a 53-yarder, splits the uprights. I was speechless on the sidelines myself, but you won by 5 points, and those 6 there were huge. Were you imagining Jake could do that? I know you told me he has the leg, but to do it on that stage was very impressive.
Yeah, we put a lot of trust in that young man. One of the things that one of his greatest attributes is his leg. He kicks off deep. He kicked great off the tee, all day. But in practices, he's been known to nail, a 55 or 60-yard field goal, and that's at a high school stadium with wider goalposts. And we were in that third quarter, and it's an interesting rule in high school. We take advantage of it, but we know that he has the leg to get it at least to the end zone. So at the very least, it's going to be a touchback. And in the event that it even falls short, we even run down and cover it, because you can cover it like a punt and down it. And they have the opportunity to return it as well. So we put a lot of trust in that young man, and he nailed them, right? He had a 48 and a 53-yarder that were just right down the middle. And you can't, those were huge points, and it was with the wind in the third quarter, and I think we had all the momentum going into the fourth.
And going into that fourth, things got a little bit dicey. You had the Engelhop, the D1 player, who broke one for 90 yards on a pass play, and then ultimately we fast forward to about a little over a minute to go. They have the ball, and you guys are up 5, but then ultimately, like you said, your defense made the big play, forced their star player, Engelhop, to fumble, and that's how you sealed the game.
Yeah, I think they had a lot of success with those wheel routes. Engelhop on the previous possession scored a 90-yard touchdown pass on a wheel route. They just got a matchup that they liked. They snuck him out of the backfield, so it was a 6'4" Division I athlete against a 5'11" amazing wrestler. But he's a trackster, and our kid isn't a trackster, and so he was able to outfoot him. And it was a great call by Coach Beller, and great execution by their squad. But we didn't want that same play or that same scheme to hurt us in that final drive, so we actually pulled out one of our inside backers and threw in an extra safety just to help with a pass. And they saw that, and they adjusted to pretty much a run scheme. They had a couple pass plays where it was we covered it up extremely well, so their quarterback had to scramble around a little bit and get some yards that way. But they ultimately ran a draw that was well executed. It set up very well, but our defense rallied to the football. We had 2 guys wrap them up, and depending on which guy you ask, they punched it out. So it's a little bit hard to see on film, but very, very proud of the way that our kids held in there. They maintained their composure the entire game, and ultimately came out with a victory on a very big stage.
You're going to say, what was going through your mind when they got the ball back? I mean, you're in the moment. You don't have time to be scared per se or nervous, but what were you thinking? Okay, they're a very good team. They have the ball, and it's do or die right now on this final drive.
Well, we knew that going into that final drive with a minute left, they're going to put the ball in the hands of their studs. So they were either going to give it to their very talented wide receiver on a wheel route, or try to give it to Engelhop. And so we definitely put our sights on those 2 guys, and they did exactly that, which I would do in that same situation. In big time moments, you want to get your big time players the ball, and so our defense really keyed on those guys and rallied to the football, and the whole game, just thinking back of what I was thinking during the game, it really is a blur. It's something that, when you're in the moment, it's hard to kind of, grasp what's going on. But we were just, we were playing extremely well, and I think our coaching staff put our kids in great positions to be successful.
And just sort of, again, the game and the eye test, I think I talked to you about this before, but I want to get your take on it. Just, your guys are so much smaller than the Norfolk Catholic guys, which is probably a big reason why they're like, the Catholic players are going to win, that team's going to win. Just like the eye test, especially the linemen, they were just 5-6 inches sometimes of taller than them and much, much bigger, but ultimately speed and athleticism won out. How do you attribute that?
I think our kids just understand their strengths, but the better part of that is they also understand their weaknesses, and so our kids can use their strengths to their advantage, and they can work. They're very smart football players, so they can work out ways of getting the job done, even when their disadvantages kind of seem to be overshadowed by literally overshadowed by some of the big guys of Norfolk Catholic. So I think our offensive line did an amazing job keeping that very talented and big defensive line in check. And I think our defense just really bottled things up and kept things contained pretty well for the most part. Their big plays were kind of tricky pass plays and some misdirection run plays. And so I think our defense really shut down their bread and butter, and it is because of that speed. We've got lots of fast soccer players and tracksters that are running around out there making plays. And so, it's hard to bring a guy like David Engelhop down with 1 tackler, but when you got 5 guys rallying to the football, it makes things a lot more feasible. So, speed definitely won that matchup on last Tuesday.
All right, I'm sure you've been getting calls. People wanted to talk to you about everything. What's the community been like? That you're the championship head coach for SCOTUS, the first since 1993, and the third in school history. How's that been? You're probably pretty famous now.
Famous, maybe not, but we've got a great community here. Everybody from all 3 schools and the college have contacted me and just told us congratulations and how much fun it was to watch, and so the community's been great. The SCOTUS family has been unbelievable. I've gotten letters and emails from people I've never met before, just just telling me about their memories of SCOTUS football and how proud they are of this team. So, but probably the biggest the icing on the cake for me was my childhood hero wrote me a letter preparing us for the game and congratulating us after the game, and that's a guy by the name of Charlie Mcbride, the old defensive coordinator from Nebraska. He's a good family friend of my parents, and when I opened that handwritten letter, I couldn't believe it. And so the support that we've gotten as a coaching staff and for our kids has just been amazing. So really just trying to enjoy it. It's still a kind of strange feeling, but a very enjoyable one at that.
Well, and sort of just wrapping this thing up, I mean, this is the end of the road for that group of seniors, the special group that you knew had the potential to do something in their senior year. I guess your thoughts as, you've had this journey with this group as your head coach of 2 years now, and you're saying goodbye to them, but it couldn't be on a better note.
Yeah, it's hard to say goodbye to a group that's taken you this far. These kids have been a staple of our school really for since they've been freshmen and sophomores. So they're going to be they're a valuable group of kids, a great group of kids. I couldn't imagine coaching a better group of young men. They're personable, they're smart, they're athletic, they're just fun to be around. And the fact that I'm no longer going to be coaching them, it's hard to swallow. But I just I hope they know, and if they don't, hopefully they tune into this, how much they've meant to me personally. When you get a kid that will run as fast as he possibly can down 40 yards and run right into somebody for you, there's no greater feeling than that. The trust factor, the love that we have for our players and that they have for their coaches is amazing. So they will be missed, but they will not be forgotten.
So is that sort of the final message you left them with after Memorial Stadium? What was that locker room like when you won that, and then what did you leave them with?
It was a very surreal moment. We like to just kind of go around with all of our coaches and just kind of give our final thoughts on the season and on the group of seniors. And so, the big message at the end that I left with these kids is don't let this be the last great thing you do, because this group of kids is capable of doing so much. I hope that they come back and help out in their community, and I hope they go on to have great families and ultimately just find success in life, however that pans out. So, but ultimately we ended with a prayer like we start every season, and just very happy that we could win championships with a really good group of young men and live out our faith the way that we do.
All right, Coach. Well, it's been a pleasure having you back in for a year or two of Coach's Corner. Couldn't have been more fun covering you guys as you won that third state title. It's been a blast, and I'm looking forward to 9-10 months from now when we get you back in here and cover you guys again. But congratulations on the amazing year, the amazing run, and the amazing job that you did in just your second year, and hopefully more years to come.
Hey, I hope so. Thanks a lot for everything this year, guys.
And that wraps up this edition of Coach's Corner here on ColumbusNewsTeam.com. It wraps up the football season of the show here as head coach Tyler Linder and the SCOTUS Shamrocks are Class C1 champions. Thank you so much for watching throughout this entire football season. Myself, producer Aaron Trout, been very happy to bring you all of the football action throughout high school between Columbus High, Lakeview, and SCOTUS. We'll be doing the football season again next year, and we'll probably be doing some basketball and wrestling as well. So stay tuned to ColumbusNewsTeam.com and News Channel Nebraska, as we will be providing the best possible high school sports coverage we can throughout the sports season. I'm Brandon Axman, and thank you for watching.